morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you wherever and whenever you are joining us. Welcome to our latest edition of What Caught My Eye, or WCME Sports. As always, I'm your host, the coach Nick Vesci, joined by the boy Stephen Vesci and the man Stephen Comlow.
Hello.
Now, if you're new to our show, we like to think of ourselves as the sports show for sports fans about sports. We like to focus mainly on what happens in between the lines of competition and less about what happens off the court, off the ice, off the field. Right? Before we get started, just a reminder to follow us on all of our socials. That's on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat at UCME_sports. Our episodes drop every Wednesday at noon on Spotify, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. All of this information can be found on our website, UCMEsports.com. Now, without further ado, into our top catch of the week. And this week, we went with the NCAA basketball tournaments, both men's and women's. If you missed it, the first weekend happened, and for most people or a lot of people, they consider that the best weekend of any of them, or the best days of college basketball of the whole year, just because the volume of games that you got, the potential upsets and madness that ensues, which is why we call it March Madness. After the first weekend, again, if you don't know, the Sweet 16 is set. You go from 64 teams to 16 teams. So that's all we have left on the men's side, and also what we have left on the women's side as well. So to start off, we'll kick it off with the men's Sweet 16. The SEC, who we said earlier in the year, SEC basketball is what SEC football thinks they are, which is true, and they proved it. The SEC set a record this year for the most teams in the Sweet 16 with 7, surpassing the mark set by the ACC in 2016. I believe that had 6. I want to say they broke the record also for the number of teams into the field. Out of the conference, I think that record was held by the 2011 Old Big East, so back in the day. So pretty amazing on that respect, showing that, yes, they may have lost a lot of teams. It's because you had 14 in, but you get 14 in, boy. You get half of those teams in the Sweet 16. You're doing
pretty incredible.
It's pretty incredible. So
whereas, I can already see the posts on social media now that if they lose, if one SEC team, only one person can win the national championship, there's gonna be 13 SEC teams that lose. They're see, they lost 13 games. They suck.
We're 500 in league play.
Oh, yeah. That just absolute bait.
Absolute bait. Don't forget that. Speaking of the SEC, again, in the South region, the number 1 overall seed, the Auburn Tigers, they advanced. They will take on the number 5 seed Michigan Wolverines, who are staying hot after their Big Ten conference tournament triumph. They took out number 4 Texas A&M. Also in that region, number 2 Michigan State will be there against number 6 Ole Miss. Ole Miss routing Iowa State, shockingly. I think that injury, I forget the player on Iowa State, is one of their leading scorer, second leading scorer who was hurt. I think that had a massive impact on them.
That score was the one that I was Ole Miss beating Iowa State pretty handily.
Yes.
That was a little shocking to me, but yeah, that injury definitely hurts.
Yep. Chris Beard's squad, the Rebels, they're making their first ever trip to the Sweet 16, I believe, in program history, which is pretty cool. In the East region, number 1 Duke advanced fairly easily. They will play number 4 Arizona. Number 2 Alabama will play number 6 BYU after BYU took out number 3 Wisconsin, who was one of the trendier hotter picks coming into this. BYU's offense can light it up with the best of them.
What's the over-under in BYU Alabama?
I got
you got to think they're projecting each team to score 85 to 90.
I'll find out.
You have BYU Wisconsin, which is very similar. That ended up 91 to 89.
Yep.
Alabama's put up 90 several times.
Oh yeah.
I believe they've cracked 100.
Yes. Weren't they the leading offense, or was?
Yes, they were the top offense in the nation.
That's what I thought. In the West, you have number 1 Florida will take on number 4 Maryland, and number 3 Texas Tech will take on number 10 Arkansas after Arkansas took out number 2 St. John's in the battle between Calipari and Pitino. Maryland, to get to where they did, Derek Queen, one of the Crab 5, he hit the buzzer-beating runner off the glass. It was an incredible shot to beat Colorado State after the Rams had taken a 1-point lead with a 3-pointer with about 6 seconds left. And I think what the thing is, he went in the huddle and said, "Give me the MFing ball," right? Which is awesome. Left the coach no choice. All right, go take it, and he converted, which is even better, right? In the Midwest, you have number 1 Houston taking on number 4 Purdue, and number 2 Tennessee taking on number 3 Kentucky in an all SEC battle. Again, like we said, inevitably one of those teams is going to have to lose. for that. Tennessee, Ole Miss, and BYU are the only teams that are left that have never reached a Final Four. So if you're looking for a team to root for, because if you look at this list, you say, well, where are the underdogs, the Cinderellas, right? You really don't have any. Arkansas might be the closest as a 10 seed, but it's Arkansas coached by a Hall of Fame coach with transfers in there like John L. Davis, who went to a Final Four with FAU a couple years ago. So, not that surprising. I know in my bracket, I picked St. John's to lose that game, just the wrong team. So that's not the Cinderella. You could look at Ole Miss and BYU. Those are the other lower remaining seeds, but still, those are two offenses that can light it up. BYU may be a little shocking because I don't even know who their coach is. Obviously, Chris Beard is the coach at Ole Miss, and he's an accomplished coach. Been to a title game with Texas Tech before, so that shouldn't be as surprising. But again, if you're looking for someone to root for, maybe it's that Ole Miss, BYU, Tennessee route because you've got coaches there or teams there that have never gone. I don't know if Rick Barnes has ever gone to a Final Four. That might be something to root for them.
Kevin Young.
Kevin
Young's the BYU coach.
Sounds like someone at a BYU.
He's done a good job, right? Can't argue with that. So again, if you're looking for someone to root for there, any
first year coach.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Thoughts on what we saw transpire?
So real quick, before we go jumping into that, answer Stevie's earlier question. The over-under for Alabama BYU is 175.5. So
give me the over.
They're essentially predicting that both teams are going to score their average. Alabama averages about 92 points per game. BYU averages just over 81 points per game. So you think they figure both teams are probably going to be scoring about their average. So you think you're cashing the over on that?
Yeah, a week to prepare. Give me the over.
That's fair.
And maybe the game goes into OT. Just saying.
That's a good point. It just feels like what the Wisconsin game was like 91-89. It feels like someone's definitely getting into the 90s in this game.
Yeah.
But did we say that and watch this be like a slobber knocker? It's brick house.
BYU does have
the greatest defensive game we've ever seen.
BYU gets cold, and that happened in the Big 12 tournament where they played Houston. They scored like 50 points in the game.
I mean, Mark Sears the other night against St. Mary's, he took over. That dude's a floor general. Like he seemed like he was having a pretty relaxed game, just kind of dishing it off, doing his thing, not really going crazy. And then when it looked like St. Mary's was trying to mount a comeback, he kind of took over. That dude is incredible.
The active leading scorer in Division I men's basketball we've talked about this before. Guard play wins in the NCAA tournament, and he is the definition of winning guard play.
Yeah, I like watching him. But
Can make any shot.
I think two games that really caught my eye, if we want to take it back to the first round in the Midwest, Gonzaga, Georgia. I think Stevie and I were talking about it over the weekend. I think that was my favorite game in the first round just because of how Gonzaga came out. And what was it, Stevie? They had 2 kill shots in the first 5 minutes or something like that.
So a kill shot in basketball is a 10-0 run. And they had 2 10-0 runs in the first 10 minutes of the game to go up 27-3.
Yeah, that was impressive. I think just especially considering, by rankings, these guys are supposed to be pretty evenly matched. It's an 8-9. And obviously we talked about last week about teams that just underperformed during the season versus, how tight the field is and how, a team that's ranked 8 could be 3 wins away from being a 2 seed or a 3 seed, whatever. But I thought that game was just super fun to watch and a great way to get the weekend started.
Yeah, Gonzaga definitely underseeded. Same with UConn. And that's why we saw the Gonzaga-Houston game and the UConn, especially the UConn-Florida game, very tight. And I had said this, I think, last week, that to me, the toughest games that Florida and Houston would play would be that game against those teams because it felt like in those regions, those are the next best teams. Yeah, you've got great teams, right? You don't want to, dump on Tennessee and Kentucky and Texas Tech, but it's like Gonzaga and UConn they got more athletes and better players out there probably than most of the other teams that they would face. So that was a tough draw, and that showed some very good resilience from Houston and Florida, especially Florida. Houston, I expected with Kelvin Sampson, a Hall of Fame coach or should be Hall of Fame coach. Yeah, right. He's got the pedigree. They've been there, done that. I think it's their 7th straight Sweet 16, which is phenomenal, right? But Florida, fairly new coach, Todd Golden, I believe is his name. coming over from San Francisco. He's done a fantastic job. They got a lot of guys coming from all over the place too. And yes, the guard plays wins out, and they have all the depth. They have everything you want. But still, you would think there's a disadvantage there. The UConn's been there before. Their coach has been there, done that before. According to him, he's the best coach in the country, right? So that one was more impressive to me, that Florida found a way to win, because that's what you have to do in March. You have to find a way to win, whether it's your A game, your B game, your C game, or your D game.
That was also the first onions that we got of the tournament from Raftery.
Florida UConn?
Yes.
With Walter Clayton?
Yes.
Hell yeah.
That shot with a minute left.
He does have some onions. He can make some shots. Like some of those threes were legit NBA caliber threes that weren't even touching the rim. And I was like, okay, well, how are we supposed to stop that? We're really double teaming him into a corner, and he's pulling a Doncic and scoring, right? So that just shows, again, one of the reasons Florida was thought of so highly coming into this, not just the momentum that they had with winning the SEC tournament, but, the talent and skill they had there. One thing, I guess, of note, like I said, there's not really any Cinderellas, right? And I feel like the last few years were dominated by upsets. Mm-hmm. And people brought this up, and I think rightfully so, about NIL and the impact. And we talked about in football how we thought that was spreading the field out further because, these programs, yes, have so much money, but it's also like there's only so many spots, and there's so many good football players out there that it's like, okay, I could go to Ohio State, sit on the bench for $1 million, or I could go to whatever, freaking Virginia Tech, and play the entire time and be their best player for $1 million, right? And that was creating avenues for players, and that's why you saw the teams that got into the playoff in football. And it's almost like it's the opposite in basketball. And I guess, right, football is king. It brings in the most money. Some of these schools at the Division I level do not have football teams, right? And if they do have football teams, it's FCS or below. Like a Georgetown, for example, FCS football team, right? South Dakota State, FCS football team, right? So they even have a leg up on some of these other schools that don't. And I think that might be where you start to see this disparity, because many of the teams that have advanced, and boy, you were talking to us earlier before the show started, many of these teams that have advanced, their best players did not originally start at the school they're at. They're all transfers. And that has to have an impact or be from NIL. Yes, some of it is coaching changes, right? You have Calipari go from Kentucky to Arkansas, and he brings a couple guys with him, right? Dusty may go from FAU to Michigan, he brings Vlad Golden with him, right? You have some of those things, but you also, like at Ole Miss with Chris Beard, Sean Padula coming over from Tech. That's not a, thing that he had there. He wasn't coaching him before. Ole Miss is like almost all guys from all over the place. So you have newer coaches, yes. Guys that switch teams as coaches, yes. But also NIL is allowing a program like an Ole Miss, who has so much revenue and money in their pool for NIL from football, to shell a couple out and get some of these guys from a place that they wouldn't have left at like an AC school like Virginia Tech.
NIL has been around since 21 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just now we're deciding that Cinderella is dead. I think that the mid-major is dead. I think that's stupid. Next year we're going to have someone that pops into the
I think it's more that we're seeing the effects now. Like for football, we didn't see the effects right away. This year felt like the effects were the biggest for football about spreading the talent. And like we said, for the reasons for basketball, with the fact that so many of those schools don't have football teams to generate that NIL money, you're seeing that reverse and flip. That it took people a couple years, right? You can't just say it didn't happen right away. Well, right away, people were like, what in the hell's going on? And now that people are starting to get a grip and understand what to do, how this works as of right now, that's why I think you're seeing the biggest effect at this moment in time, 3 years in.
I think the biggest thing is not necessarily the transfers, it's the coaching. It's the fact that there's so many coaches now that are one and done at a school, whatever it is, and they're almost being the exact same thing as like a one and done transfer, a transfer that goes to plays for 4 different schools. I mean, literally the coaches are going from like this mid-major, like now I'm going from the Mountain West to Big 12 or Big 10 or whatever it is. Like a lot of these guys are doing that, and they're out of school for. I mean, Drake just had back-to-back years where their coach left.
Do you think though? Could you argue that them leaving has to do with NIL as well? Because you see teams go like you think of their coach as dispensable the same way that the player could be dispensable. So hey, we didn't do so well this year. We'll fire our coach. All those guys are going to leave. Correct. We'll get a new coach. You get a new flock of guys in.
His guys.
He'll be here for 2 years. Maybe he has some scandal. He's gone. Now these all new guys come in, right?
Yes.
Whereas before, with the way
find some
transfers
coach that overperformed at a school that
yes,
was
That's
surprising.
that's what's going on is that they're poaching. All of these schools are poaching coaches more than I feel like.
but I think part of it is because of NIL, because it's like,
Yes.
well, we can pay to get it better, right? Well, before when especially with the old transfer rules where you had to sit out for a year, you would be hesitant to do that because you'd have all these guys that you'd bring in a new coach that coach didn't recruit. And now the coach is stuck with those guys for 4 years. And now until he gets his guys, right? So it's a whole larger process. I think NIL is, especially that transfer rule as well, has just sped that process up. So instead of going, give the guy 5 years, we're giving him 2 years. And a coach has no issue, like Drake's coach from last year, jumping from Drake to WVU to Indiana. There's no issue there. Whereas before, you're looking at a process. Like it's a major process. Now it's not so much. It's like building a pro team out of free agency.
Correct. That's and basketball's a lot easier for a roster turnaround, right? You just need 5 guys. Like literally, Coach Cal was like, depth doesn't matter. I think it was either Cal or McCollum. I think McCollum also said this. They were like, depth doesn't matter. Just give me 5 guys.
Yep. And the playbook, right? Yes, they run plays in basketball, but basketball's pretty unstructured.
Right, it's not anything.
It's, if you ever wondered why during the NFL you don't see a lot of guys get traded at the trade deadline, the only guys you see are like old wide receivers. That's why the playbook and all that stuff that goes into football, you can't just pick it up right away. It takes months of training and working together, whereas baseball and basketball, throw the guy out there and go. You're up to bat, hit the ball, right? You're on the court, score. At the very least, you could do that for whoever you trade for. And it's kind of like that in college as well, to a lesser extent.
Calipari's got an advantage here because he's always had a new roster every year because he's always had one and done guys, right? This is nothing new to him, and then halfway through the year, they find a groove and chemistry and start going, and that's exactly what happened with this Arkansas team. So, like, I know I'm more. People are concerned more about the transfers. I'm more concerned about the coaching carousel of those guys. I mean,
what comes first, the chicken or the egg? That's kind of that.
To me, I think it's the coaches. I think I've seen so many just go out there and poach a coach.
But do you think that's also happening because we've talked about this before, about especially with the ACC, of how many of their established coaches are gone?
We talked about it last.
So there's all these openings.
Dan Hurley. We talked about it last year with Dan Hurley. Like when after UConn won, Dan Hurley was very vocal. Like, yeah, I'll probably have a big priority in terms of like recruitments, but I'm not looking for the top recruit. I'm looking for my guy.
But that was also after a lengthy saga of will he or won't he go to the Lakers, which would have caused another carousel to start spinning. So I think you're right. It's what comes first, chicken or the egg, maybe.
I mean, they're like
the
New Mexico,
thing that starts it is the coaching change that turns a carousel.
I just saw New Mexico's best player, Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, is hitting the portal. Patino is looking like he's going to get hired somewhere, and it's either going to be West Virginia or Villanova, or he's going to stay in New Mexico. But the fact that his best player left tells me Patino's going somewhere, and that guy's probably going to follow him, or he's going to get a massive bag and go somewhere like Auburn.
Which, it's one or the other.
But it's kind of one of those things, like you start seeing some of these like players. The players end up leaving a lot of times before the coaches, because the portal opens
pretty
Monday, right after the round of 32, which is the dumbest thing.
Yeah, the timing of even on the football side, it's that might be one of the biggest adjustments they need to make before they do like regulations on how much someone can donate or what you can pay someone or how you can pay them. Before they do that stuff, I almost think they need to fix the scheduling because even the football, right? You had Penn State's backup quarterback transferring before their playoff game,
and that's
because he had to.
And that's a guy that was used a lot. Like, he was an important part of that offense.
Yes. If he wanted to be on a different roster next year to have a better shot at starting, he had to do that.
Yeah, he had to go visit the schools to do it, which meant he can't be at practice and can't do those certain things.
And that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It just makes no sense, but it's the NCAA and they don't make any sense.
No, they don't. Just ask West Virginia's governor. Another thing I thought was noteworthy too was didn't feel like they were that great at games. Was I alone in that? I felt like the games were kind of
the start wasn't that great.
No, I think Friday. What was it? Friday where we were bopping around in Richmond. right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that I didn't think the games that day were very good. I mean, heck, we put the games on one TV and 22 Jump Street on the other TV. I do think
Good decision. I
I
watched
think
the movie more than I
I
did the
think
games.
Saturdays and Sundays games I think were
We're a little better.
Like,
It's
But
because
are we having the madness though? I feel like it's like normally pandemonium. Like I can't look away from the screen, and I felt myself, and I even said it to you guys, put something else on.
well,
Like I want to look away. This isn't good
we-
basketball. It's not good officiating. It's not good.
this
you
was
know,
also a different kind of year for us. I think we used a maximum of 3 TVs this year.
yeah.
Whereas,
usually-
like, in
usually
the past, we have like 5 or 6.
But still, if you had all those on, it was like, what? Am I watching anything that great besides the fact that it's
Nick,
just basketball?
you're also hugely opposed to quad box, which is how
Yeah, I don't like
watching
it
them
because
this year.
it shrinks what you can watch. I'd rather have 4 screens than quad boxing it.
No, give me the
yeah.
Or flip. I would rather
but like
rapid
for-
fire
Flipping
flip on
is
the
just-
clicker.
Flipping during that day is impossible. There's no
False.
way you can flip.
You're
Challenge
react-
accepted.
You're reactive.
So you're gonna miss so much action.
You're reactive.
Then I guess I'll have to host next year or something, or I'll have to bring my own
Do it,
TV
please,
with my
please.
remote.
No. You already said it. You already said it. You're hosting. Please.
No,
host.
that doesn't work that way. I live in a tiny
As
tiny
we
space
mature, the relationship
several more
matures.
other people living here. So no,
Several more other people. I actually have more people living at my house than you do.
not as many
That
minors.
is true.
Not as many minors
It's just a ridiculous statement.
or tax.
But yeah, the opening round, I don't think we didn't see any madness, and I think that was expected this year because I mean Stevie said it last week and leading up to Thursday that this is a very like top heavy year, right?
Yes, it's not going to be like that every year.
I know it's
right?
not, but
Like,
I think that's a storyline this year.
Yeah,
Is that
I agree. It could be.
It lacked some cachet, some
I mean,
craziness.
I didn't miss a game on Friday because I've had like a couple upset picks.
We
whatever.
didn't miss a game. I was right there with
Yeah.
you.
Oh, yes, we did not miss a game on Friday. But also, I'm gonna say, Nick, let's save the madness for the next couple weeks because we have big time basketball matchups.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
I am saying, yeah, we don't have the Cinderella 12 to 15.
But we get to
seed
see
that
some
got
powerhouses
here, but-
duking it out, like
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
I'm to me, I'm actually more excited about these matchups.
because
I mean,
we're
the
not-
Hu-
Fun. Cinderella's fun, but when they get smoked by 20 in some of these games, you're
Yeah.
like,
Houston, Purdue, Tennessee, Kentucky, and the Midwest is great theater. I would also say the same thing with Duke, Arizona, and Alabama, BYU, that region as well.
Alabama BYU
great-
is fireworks, man.
Great theater there. You're right.
we saw some.
It's
good
got to live
games,
up to
though.
it. I'm
We saw
waiting
some
for that.
good
Give me
games,
that.
though.
Florida,
Can't-
UConn lived up to it.
Houston
did.
Gonzaga was a
Maryland.
decent game to watch.
And Colorado State lived up to it.
Oregon, Arizona. I said Sunday night I'm going to bed early. I'm not staying up to watch this Oregon Arizona game. Well, guess what? I stayed up to watch the whole thing, and then I had to calm myself down before I could fall asleep. That
But
game
didn't Arizona smoke them?
no,
No, they won by 4.
they won by 4.
I must
and
have
like,
read the wrong score.
And that brings
I
me,
thought it was like
that-
14.
That makes me want to bring up, Stevie, you said a minute ago, like when you were talking about Calipari, depth doesn't matter. Give me 5 guys. If Arizona wasn't as deep and well coached as that team is, they would have lost that game. Nick, if you didn't see it, like Oregon, so the guy that was defending the big man on Oregon, Biddle, the guy that was defending him, Awaka, got in foul trouble with like 8 minutes left, almost 9
Yeah,
minutes left.
he goons it up a lot of Waka.
Well, so he got in foul trouble, and he up until that point had kept Biddle in check. Well, this other guy that they put in to guard Biddle was just having his way with him, and Oregon came back. And in the last like 3 minutes of the game, Arizona was doing like full line changes to like, all right, here comes the team that can rebound these like missed foul shots. All right, here comes another line change. Here comes the guys that could score and like get the lead back and like extend the lead. But the ending of that game was nuts. Holy cow, that game was wild. And is it Caleb Love? Is that who I'm
On
thinking
Arizona?
of? That dude is an absolute dog. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that guy was so much fun to watch. And like the announcers were kind of giving some insight, talking about like, yeah, like a lot of people were hedging and tempering their expectations for this guy. This is his chance to really step up and show that like he deserves every bit of clout that he gets. And man, did that guy take over. That was so much fun. That was a good game. It just sucked that it was late on a Sunday.
Yeah, he's the victim of like his own expectation and hype, because he started at UNC and was supposed to be the dude, and he was extremely inconsistent and a lot of times very selfish, and took a lot of bad shots that really hurt their team and lost favor with UNC and their fan base because of that, because that's a very educated fan base in terms of basketball.
Yes.
And so he kind of got run out of town and went to Arizona when Tommy Lloyd became the head coach and left Gonzaga. And he's still been inconsistent. He's looked better, I think, when he's gotten to Arizona, but he's still shown like the brilliant flashes like you talked about, but then other times where it's like, dude's lost. So I think that's his issue. Is he'll show that brilliant flash, so that if you can do something once, you can do it 1,000 times, and people get that expectation of this should be it every time, and it hasn't been. But you're right. This is his chance. If you can put this together for 6 games against the best competition in the hardest environments, that shows that you are that.
Coaching and Caleb Love won Arizona that game. I'll be the first to say it. Another good game was Maryland, Colorado State.
Yes, it was.
Was it a travel?
No, it absolutely was not.
I know.
He's just 6'10", so it looks like a travel because he's huge. It is not a travel.
People are like, it's 3 steps, it's a travel, it's a gather step, whatever. I watched that so many times, like just the real time. Like I don't see anything.
See, the funny thing is like for people like us that grew up playing basketball and continued to play it and watch it, like we don't need these complicated Gene Steratore rules explanations of why it isn't. Like, to a basketball player's eye, you just know.
Correct.
You know a travel. You know a travel when you see it. I watched that play in real time, and I went, "What the hell are they talking about?"
I know it's not. It's similar to what Ty Jerome's double dribble. To where like how many times like we watched that real time. No one in the stadium, no one on TV watched that and went, "That's a double dribble." Not a single person. Even Charles Barkley, who's rooting for Auburn, he didn't look at it. And then Steratore comes in and goes, like, during the reviews, like, "Oh, that should have been a double dribble." And it's like, but when you're watching it real time, it's not. We're watching that play.
Right. We gotta make stories where there are none, right? Because that's what sports has become, right? It's absolutely not a travel. It looks like it because he's 6'10", the same way far too many big men get called for travels down low when they're in fact not, and you see far too few little guys get called for travels when in fact they're traveling all the time. It's the optics of it's what it looks like, but it's 100% not a travel. It's just a great play that he made because he said, "Give me the MF and ball in the huddle."
There was a coach, I forget who it was, but he said the second you get your team, you get your roster, you just play 1-on-1, and you find out who can get you a bucket. Who in a late game situation is going to get you a bucket? And this guy Queen, he wants it.
What was all this like? Like, did you see some like big tweet resurface about that guy?
Oh, it was Dan Dockich.
Yeah, that's who it was.
Dan Dockich is a loser.
Did you see that? Like
Dan Dockich?
What are we talking about here? Like,
yeah, because this is what he does. That's his shtick of you make fun of a 17, 18-year-old kid for choosing to go to a different school than your alma mater, and you like give him hate and all this stuff, and then this guy makes it, and then he Queen went back on X and reposted Dockich's tweet.
Hell yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
that's so fire. Crab 5. Oh, that's awesome.
Crab 5.
Toilet paper. Pumpernickel. We still saying the same thing. This is crazy.
Fiato.
Not a word?
Fiato. Not a word, but I'll accept it.
I have tenure. I can say whatever I want, really.
Moving on to the women's bracket, like I said earlier, they have the Sweet 16 set as well. You have number 1 overall seed UCLA. They advance. They'll take on number 5 Ole Miss. In their same region, number 2 NC State will play number 3 LSU. Number 1 South Carolina takes on number 4 Maryland, and number 2 Duke will take on number 3 UNC. Maryland to get there. They won their second round game 111-108 in double overtime against Alabama after erasing an 18-point deficit too. And
crazy.
Double overtime. That was a wild game. I forget the girl in Alabama. She set some record for like,
Wow.
yeah. And yeah, that was a wild game there. Also, number 1 USC will face number 5 Kansas State, and number 2 UConn will take on number 3 Oklahoma. Of course, the big story with the USC is that superstar Juju Watkins, arguably the best player in the country, arguably would have been like the top pick. May still be the top pick in the WNBA draft. She tore her ACL in a non-contact, a little contact, but it was, kind of defenders converging play, and that's really sad. That sucks because I had said it last week that the potential best matchup of the tournament was going to be number 1 USC, number 2 UConn, with Juju and Paige Beckers playing against each other, and we're now robbed of that, which is just sad. Like, sadness was the first thing that came to mind when I saw and heard that. I was like, that's just like the worst thing.
Yeah.
Because especially at this time, like if she torn it at the beginning of the year, it's like, yeah, it sucks. So you lose out on a year of watching her play. But it's also like, okay, she's going to miss this year. She gets a full year to recover. Maybe she comes back to USC. Maybe she goes pro. But, we can kind of get with it. But at this time of the year where all these teams and these brackets are set and you got these matchups coming up, it's like, God, we lost an incredible opportunity to see that. She lost an incredible opportunity. Now she's got to recover, and their timetable for recovery, right, is going to cost her next year probably, and it's just terrible. It's terrible, Ernest, terrible.
Yeah.
Number 1 Texas will advance to play number 5 Tennessee, and number 2 TCU has continued their amazing season. They will take on number 3 Notre Dame, who Notre Dame was number 1 in the country just a few weeks ago. So that's a marquee matchup there. Couple thing here that I thought was really cool: Ole Miss, Maryland, Tennessee, and Duke. All 4 of those schools have both their men's and women's teams in the Sweet 16 this year. Which
awesome.
Is awesome, right? That's a pretty amazing accomplishment.
Could you imagine how electric those campuses would be if, like, both teams won?
What was it? UConn was the last one?
To do that, it's got to be, right?
2011.
The parties would be insane.
I believe UConn in 2011.
That sounds right. I don't know who else it would have been.
How long do you cancel class for if both...
You don't. Who cancels class? Your schools would cancel class?
Just don't go to it.
Yeah, class
I'm pretty
still
sure
goes
my
on. You
school-
show up
I'm
drunk.
an adult.
I'm pretty sure my school canceled class the day after Bin Laden was killed.
Yeah, classy down there. I don't even know if my school canceled class for winning a national championship.
Wait, really?
I don't know if they did. I don't. They might have.
I feel like you gotta.
They probably did because it's a Monday.
People calling
It's
sick
a Monday.
to work when professional sports teams win titles.
Well, especially because the championship game is on a Monday, right?
Yeah,
you play that on Monday.
You got to think
They
UVA
probably
would-
had to.
You figured
Yeah,
UVA
because-
would definitely, especially after the year
But-
before.
But UVA is also a school that prides itself more on academics than it does
I would have
athletic
never known
achievements.
talking to you.
Yes, Carruthers.
You're
Oh,
always talking. We got
Carruthers.
this many natties. We got this many national titles in these sports.
I believe they have 35 now.
Yes, they do. They have 35. That it's a hint at a future segment coming up here. But yes, that many natties. But when you win that many, it kind of diminishes the whole thing. Another one, okay, we'll tack it on there.
We won
You
the
can't
natty.
cancel. We win so often, they can't cancel class every time. It's just not possible. But I think the basketball one, they had like full almost riots. It was not riots, but like craziness ensue on campus. So
I've seen
they
riots.
probably canceled it the next day for it,
It's a
which would have been
score.
very noteworthy.
Neighborhoods alive.
Yes.
Could you imagine?
Maybe
You think
just-
Tech canceled class after their bass fishing title?
They probably did. I'm sure they did.
doesn't even count either?
No, it doesn't. But I'm sure they did. That wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Yeah, cool. Like I said, a couple key matchups here. We talked about the possibility of the USC UConn matchup, but the Texas Tennessee matchup and the Duke UNC matchup are very, very interesting, right? Duke UNC, that's as true rivalry as it can get. We talked about that a few weeks ago. To meet in the NCAA tournament with a lot of stuff on the line is amazing. It's kind of like a few, not the same, but like when Coach K's last year when UNC beat them in the Final Four, I believe that was. So it may not have the same cachet as with the Sweet 16 game, but it's also so rare. Like you would think you may never see this again. These teams play each other at this time of year. And Texas and Tennessee, another intra-conference game there. Obviously, Texas newcomer to the SEC, but Tennessee playing some good basketball. That they were the name in women's college basketball for a very long time and have kind of fallen off after Pat Summitt's passing and retirement. But it's nice to see, it's always a story, right? Tennessee has built that reputation. I want to say the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame is in Knoxville, right?
Yes, it is.
So it's, what a great story if they're able to advance and keep going, right? So you have some great storylines. Even though we're robbed of getting to see Juju Watkins play, you still have a lot of good stuff to look at and watch for. And this is, Boyd talked about this on the men's side, about how you got some great matchups coming up, and this is when you're going to see some awesome, exciting things. Yep. And the awkwardly feminine from the possibly Canadian. But the women's side especially, because we've said this before, right? The talent disparity is still, and talent and coaching disparity is still so wide in the women's game that the early rounds are not as exciting.
The rounds stink.
Yeah, they stink. So this is when it starts getting exciting for the women's tournament. So this is when you start seeing like you said, the cream rise to the top. You start to see that stuff happen. You start to have these better matchups. Thank you, Colin. Are those Cracker Jacks? Those are sunflower seeds.
They're Frank's Red Hot seeds, which is I love Frank's Red Hot, but
not a fan of those.
No.
Anything else college basketball wise? Don't tell me my business.
These are great.
You don't tell me what to know or what to think.
No, I think that was a pretty good segment. I can't wait for the next round to start. I'm already itching.
Well, at this point, 2 days? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Thursday. Sunday again?
Yep.
Another great weekend of sports. Woo!
And, hold on. I can say this because I know she doesn't watch the show. Tessa's going to be out of the house all day Saturday. I'm planting on that couch. I'm going to make some chicken.
Nice ass groove.
I'm going to make some chicken nuggets.
Classy. Very, very adult of you.
Dino shake, baby.
I'm
going to make some chicken nuggets. I'm going to crack some cold ones. And
cracking a cold one.
Listen to Cracking a Cold One by the Lewd Dudes.
Obviously. Shout out Lewd Dudes.
Follow us. Always classy here on What Caught My Eye.
It's the gas station, quick.
That's going to bring us to our next segment, which is our Mimosa Minute for this week. Our Mimosa Minute, as always, is brought to you by Maine & Co., the creators of the modern mimosa. Visit them at mainsip.com. That's MAYNESIP.com. And follow them on Instagram at maine.co to stay up to date with their newest products. Order yours today and just, have a good time with some modern mimosas. Mimosa in a can doesn't get much better than that. Maine & Co., championing women's athletics since 2020. Now, if you thought our Mimosa Minute this week had to do with the women's tournament, you were wrong.
Gotcha.
Actually had, spoiler, shock, and awe value. I had some good stuff, awesome stuff, actually, for the Mimosa Minute this week. First one I'm going to start with was the women's hockey championship game. I don't know if you saw it. Epic. That's why I'm wearing my Wisconsin sweatshirt, spoiler alert.
Who wants it?
Down 3-2 to Ohio State in the final minute of regulation and on a power play, thanks to a too many skaters on the ice penalty by the Buckeyes. Wisconsin was awarded a penalty shot with 18.9 seconds left after a successful coach's challenge found that an Ohio State defender covered the puck up with her glove while in the crease. Right? So again, there's a lot to unpack there. Wisconsin on a power play, under a minute left. I believe obviously pulled the goalie. So they got a 6-on-4 advantage. They are peppering the goalie. They squeak one right past the goalie, and it's rolling in the crease. An Ohio State defender dives on the puck, clearly can see put her hand over it, and clearly move the puck, right? Which you can't cover the puck up. Wisconsin challenges after the whistle blows to stop play, and the challenge was deemed successful. And if you cover the puck up with your hand like that in the crease, it's an automatic penalty shot. So it's not a penalty down a skater. It's an automatic penalty shot. And so Wisconsin's Kirsten Sims stepped up, shook the goalie, a great move right at the end. I don't know how she kept her momentum going forward, because that's the other thing on a penalty shot is you can't stop. You have to still go forward. And she was able to shake the goalie, convert the game-tying goal, force overtime. And then in the extra session, the same aforementioned Kirsten Sims slotted home the game-winning goal off a rebound about a few minutes into that extra session to give the Badgers their 8th national championship in program history, women's hockey program history, which is the most ever in women's hockey. an incredible game, 4-3 victory. Found out too, Wisconsin and Ohio State have met for the women's championship the last 3 years. Wisconsin won in 2023, 1-0 with 1 goal scored by none other than Kirsten Sims. So this girl has 2 national championship winning goals, which is amazing. Ohio State won last year. Wisconsin won this year. So that was this kind of the rubber match. And the Badgers this year were just a dominant force. You might say, oh, Simmons must have been their best player. Well, Casey O'Brien won, I believe it's called the Patty Kazmaier Award, which is like the women's hockey equivalent of the Hobie Baker, which is the hockey equivalent of the Wooden Award or the Heisman, right? The player of the year, right? So you had that. But Wisconsin this year, I didn't realize how good they were. They set a record for wins in a year for their program, by winning 38 games. They tied 2 and they lost 1 the entire year. That was their record. 38 wins, 1 loss, 2 ties, right? That's an incredible achievement to do. Go Badges on Wisconsin was awesome. I was yelling at the TV.
Dude, that was incredible.
It was so cool. The odds of seeing a penalty shot like that come to decide a game almost is like edge of your seat. Like that's the madness I'm talking about that I want. That was awesome. Moving on, UVA's women's swimming and diving team won their 5th consecutive national championship, defeating runner-up Stanford by 127 points in the swimming and diving championship. They got a whole bunch of teams. There's like a big meet, rack up points. So it wasn't like it was UVA versus Stanford, but that was a dominant showing to win by that many points. They're the 5th ACC program to win 5 straight natties in any sport, and the last to do so since UNC's women's soccer team, who took home 9 straight national championships from 1986 to 1994. Amazingly, they are the 3rd women's and diving team in the country to ever win 5 straight, after Stanford did it in the mid-90s and Texas did it in the mid-80s. And Alex and Gretchen Walsh combined for 48 individual and relay championships in their time at UVA. And Alex is the only swimmer ever to win an individual title at 5 separate NCAA championships. And this one, to me, is like the crazy one. Since 2021, UVA swimmers have set 83 American swimming records. Not just college swimming records, but the best time that's ever happened from an American in history since I've been keeping time. They've done that 83 times in the last 4 years. That's bonkers. And I tell you, this guy is bonkos. It's bonkos, Regis. It's crazy. It's, I believe Todd DeSorbo, the head coach at UVA, said like this is the most dominant program in any sport right now in the country. And it's hard to argue that, especially because it's not like they've, squeaked away these championships. They've been demolishing people. Like it's not even close. And they also had a chance to have another in 2020 when all this stuff got canceled. They were number 2 in the country at that point. So they legitimately
5 straight.
5 straight, yeah.
Right,
they
so
legitimately could have.
We have to give Oklahoma softball a chance.
What are they at? 4?
They're at 4 straight. If they win their 5th straight, then we're knotted up.
Knotted up. Yeah, I mean Oklahoma softball is amazing. What is their Patty? What is her name? Patty Gasso, I believe, down there at Oklahoma. She gets paid more than just about every men's Division I baseball coach. Patty Gasso does.
Yeah, I can see why.
I mean, you win national championships. Hard to argue, especially in a sport like softball, where there's a lot of people who play softball.
Yeah,
right. It's not just like there's a couple people who do this. You would think you're competing against some pretty good competition each time. Anything else from them almost a minute before we move on?
I got one.
I got one as well. You go ahead, boy.
Speaking of softball, Carolyn Pickens, the Tennessee softball pitcher, just had the fastest pitch in softball history at 78 miles an hour. That's equivalent. Do you know what that's equivalent to?
112.
You're close. Do you have a guess, Conlo? 110.
Wrong
It's
side.
the equivalent of 110 miles an hour.
That's crazy.
In baseball.
That is crazy.
That's wild.
Is she like a tall person? Like, has she got like the Randy Johnson whip?
Let me see how tall she is. She looks pretty big.
Because I feel like that's the only way, like with your. But sometimes the taller
windmill.
people, because your release point's so close, it almost like diminishes what they record on the miles per hour because it doesn't go.
Yeah, she's tall. She's 6'1".
It's still like yes, it's a tall person, but it's like not that tall. When you think about the baseball pitchers who are like 6'6" out there, it's still right. 6'1" is a lot. I'm 6'1", right, and there's no chance in hell
Maybe
I could
you'd want to look at wingspan. Maybe
throw
she's like
something
a
that hard.
A longer wingspan than her height.
Could be, but I like that.
Yeah, that's a crazy one. Mine isn't so much sports related, not because of anything they did on their field of play, but our girl Lauren Coughlin from the LPGA Tour.
And boy, where's she from?
She's from UVA.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
The College of Champions.
Lauren, I think she's going Lauren Coughlin Pond now, I believe. But she, her and a couple other LPGA ladies went and sat courtside at the Phoenix Suns game the other night.
I saw that her and Sarah Schmelzel.
It was her
Schmelly is what she goes
Schmelly, Maria Fossey, and Brooke Matthews. And the Phoenix Suns gave them all customized, personalized jerseys.
Oh, I want that. How can we get those?
We got
any NBA team listening?
Here, look at this.
Yeah, those are sweet.
Isn't it? Yeah, I mean they looked like they had a really good time. That's pretty sick to kind of like get that all-star treatment, from the Phoenix Suns.
They are Solheim Cup champions.
Yeah, and they saw a good game too. I'm pretty sure the Phoenix Suns won that game like with a 3-point buzzer beater.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so I mean,
I like it.
Shout out our ladies at the LPGA, most specifically Lauren Coughlin Pond.
Yeah, I get you right. And they're so the reason they're probably there too is they started off their season with the Asian swing where they went out and did like those big tournaments out in Asia, and they had kind of a lull because they'll start back up this week in Arizona. So that's probably why they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. Kamala, do you have the NHL standings for us?
I certainly do, Nick.
Can we check that out?
Do absolutely NHL.
Yeah, and while he's pulling that up, I don't know if you saw on any of our social media. I believe it was put this on TikTok. I might put a couple on Instagram as well. But our parents found themselves at the Washington Capitals Florida Panthers game, which was a doozy. I want to say a 6-3 victory for Washington. Did not see an Ovechkin goal, but we got a couple goals on video, which were pretty cool.
I also didn't realize like what a big game that was for the Caps because that was a season sweep of the Florida Panthers by the Caps.
That is big.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, to defeat the defending champs, all 3 times you saw them this year, that's kind of big.
Psychologically, it's big, and also if they were to get close to them in points, which I don't think they are because the Caps hold such a significant advantage there, you would hold tiebreakers in that respect if you were to tie. As you can see, there's an X next to the Washington Capitals name. Kamo, that means they have clinched the playoffs.
First team to clinch the playoffs. They are also the first team in 20-some, 40-some years that were the last team to clinch last year and the first team to clinch this year. I don't think it's happened since the 60s or something like that.
I could see that. I mean, that's also one of those like weird stats, but I saw that same stat as well. But it just shows like they figured things out at that time last year. They went on that run to clinch last year, and they've carried that over because Spencer Carberry and company figured some things out. What does Ovechkin sit at? Is he 7 goals from passing, 6 from tying?
7 from passing, 6 from tying. We're getting so close, and we have 13 or 12 games left.
12 games.
12 games left. They're actually playing right now.
Yeah, I mean
they're playing.
We're getting close, and it's like do we start to stress because you want him to break it at this time of the year, right? It feels more significant than if he were to get close and break it in November of next year. It's kind of like in November we're not focusing on hockey as much. We've got so much college football and NFL going on. So if he's able to break it now, it's like, especially in one of the best seasons that the Caps have ever had, it would be like a punctuation mark, and on their season. As you can see, Kamala's showing us the Eastern Conference here. He has it broken down just by pure number.
You want the wild card?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of technically how they do it, right? So if you didn't know, there are 4 divisions in hockey. In the Eastern Conference, there's the Atlantic and Metropolitan. In the West, you have the Central and the Pacific divisions. So go back up to the East. And basically in each of those divisions, the top 3 teams automatically qualify. So that's 6 teams that automatically get in the playoffs. And basically the next 2, regardless of what their little main division are, make it. So what you're seeing here is that if play ended tonight, obviously the Caps are in, winning the Metropolitan. The Panthers and the Devils would get in. In the Atlantic, you have the Panthers, the Maple Leafs, and the Lightning. Now, what's interesting is you see how, I guess, few points the Devils have at 81. And that's where things get interesting in the East because their 2 wildcard teams as we sit right now are Ottawa and Montreal. But right below them, you have both New York teams. You have Columbus and Detroit is probably where you would cut it off that have a shot. Now, Detroit's kind of been reeling recently, so they've kind of played themselves out of things. But still, you have a pretty, that's 9 points separating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams. That's not that big of a gap. That could be a few games here or there that go this way. But, it is the East race is something to look out for. I still think that's they're only playing for one spot. I think Ottawa's in. New Jersey's going to get in. And you're looking at Montreal, the Islanders, the Rangers, the Blue Jackets, and the Red Wings for that final spot.
I think that's where you're going to see the most, probably the most, obviously the most potential, but I think that's where you're going to see some chaos. Obviously, we would have to look at schedule. But, I mean, New Jersey and Ottawa are very close. Montreal, I mean, they have, the thing is that they have games in hand, right? Like, Jersey has three games on them.
What hurts Ottawa and Montreal is that they're part of the Atlantic Division.
Yeah,
so
that's also true.
They would have to jump Tampa to get into that top 3, whereas the Islanders and the Rangers would have to jump the Devils to get there. And that's why New Jersey seems pretty safe where they're at, is because the Islanders and the Rangers just have not played well this year. The Islanders playing much better as late, but they're still not like that good a club. And I don't think the Devils are that great, especially with Jack Hughes, right? Got hurt out for the season, but they've still been playing a lot better this year than those teams. But that's where Ottawa and Montreal kind of get screwed almost a little bit, is that they're not going to get that automatic 3 seed in that division just because it's so hard to jump them. And Ottawa can get hot and pass Tampa, but it's hard to see Tampa with the pedigree and the coach, John Cooper, who probably is the best coach in hockey.
Yeah, I would agree
as
with
it stands right now.
It's also the Canadian coach.
Yes, hard to see that happening. Of note, the Penguins and Bruins are donezo. And that's 2. I mean, the Bruins traded away Captain Brad Marchand the other week. The Penguins are aging, right? Your aging stars, Letang, Malkin, Crosby. You say got them, we have a chance, and they've really not looked that great the last few years. So that's something to look out for kind of as the season ends and going into free agency in the summer. Now, also kind of interesting there, the Rangers have a 0 goal differential.
See, that was
completely equal. That's wild.
So there's 2 teams that are in the wild card spot that I don't want to run into in the last. If I'm battling to either hold my spot in the playoffs or get into the playoffs, I don't want New York or Ottawa.
I mean, Ottawa is good.
Ottawa's very good. That's a very scrappy team. I think Brady Tkachuk benefited. Like, he was obviously a great player before 4 Nations, but I think his confidence boost and his publicity and just I mean, I guess confidence is what we can chalk it up to. Boosted so much after 4 Nations. He looks like a completely different player than last year. That team looks very, very good. And to be top of the wild card rankings with a green goal differential is big. The Rangers with a 0 goal differential amongst all of that red tells me that they're keeping games close.
They got great goalies.
Yeah, they have great goalies, obviously, and they're always a physical team, I feel like.
Yeah, they just, I don't know. They're a team looking for an identity, and you can't be searching for who you are at this time of the year. You have to already know, and that's what hurts them. That they're there where they are based solely off of talent alone, because they are as talented as any team in that entire Eastern Conference. They have just played disjointed this year, and they've had some questionable front office decisions that have contributed to where they're at right now, and most notably trading away their captain midway through the year, Jacob Trouba, who is a physical presence. That's all he does. So you're right, they scare you because of the talent. At any day, they can beat anyone. Yeah. Yes, that's true for every team, but it's especially true for the Rangers if they were to get clicking going. But Ottawa's my pick to make the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they will get there regardless of who they play to start the playoffs. I'm still deciding on whether or not I want to pick them to make it to the Stanley Cup already, right? The Stanley Cup final. But I'm on the record, I'm saying it that's my pick to go to the Eastern Conference Finals as of right now. That team is arguably the most complete team, top to bottom. Scroll down to the Western Conference. The Winnipeg Jets, who started off the season blazing hot, they cooled off a little bit, but then they found their groove back again. They are the second best team in the NHL. They're only a couple points behind the Caps for the best record or the President's Trophy chase. They sit there atop of the Central Division with the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche right behind them. That is a deep, scary division. All three of those teams you don't want to play at all because all three of those teams are, complete teams.
Certainly not
firepower,
7 games.
speed, goaltending. The only thing I would say for each of those teams is defensive questions, and the Avalanche, in my opinion, with Cale Makar, who's arguably the best defenseman in the league, him pairing with Devon Taves, right?
Yes.
That is fantastic. That would scare me the most. And you couple that with the Nathan McKinnon firepower. They seem like a sleeping giant there, but that's 3 teams you don't want to play. On the Pacific side, you've got the Vegas Golden Knights sitting atop there with the LA Kings and Edmonton Oilers there as well. Again, I think all 6 of those teams are there super, super dangerous to me. Mm-hmm. All 6 of those can win a Stanley Cup, in my opinion.
Yes.
And I think it goes to show, like, if you look at the number of points that they have, how much further ahead they are than a lot of the other teams that are in that conference. Yes, Minnesota's got 85. They're right on the precipice, but Minnesota doesn't scare me as much. I like them, right? You got my boy Matt Zuccarello. You got Kirill Kaprizov. You've got Marc-Andre Fleury coming in there at net, being effective at times. So you've got pieces there with Minnesota. Billy Guerin, GM, done a great job putting together a great roster, but they don't scare me as much. I'm sure I'll eat my words there and they'll go on a run. But the Wild, the Blues, the Canucks, the Flames, and the Hockey Club, that's really the teams that are still left. After the Hockey Club, those teams are essentially eliminated. But those teams don't really scare me that much. So the Hockey Club, name a player on the Utah Hockey Club. Yeah.
Jessica Campbell. No, that's Kraken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, it's Arizona. I mean, give us a year. Come on.
But they're playing well. They've done well this year. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't.
Change the scenery.
Yeah, those teams really do not scare me as much. Blues.
To your point though about like the depth of this conference, like the Canucks were one of the top teams in the West this year, and not a lot has changed with them. And like if you remember, their goalie was injured for playoffs last year, Thatcher Demko, right? That was him.
Yeah.
And he's back this year, but man, it's just so competitive out there in the West. Which I mean, it's a shame because like we don't really get to watch that many games because like we're employed adults who have to be up at work in the morning. And these games, a lot of these games come on so late, especially games like Vancouver, who is just so far out there. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's certainly. I think this is going to be a fun playoff race to watch.
Yes,
because
just hope the game it's going to be on so damn late.
All of these teams are just their points are so high and they're all so good. Yeah, it's just going to be on so late.
Yeah, they're so good offensively. I think that was a lot of times the thing, right? For whatever reason, the Western Conference was always speed and flash, and the East was grit and beat the hell out of each other. And that always made for a compelling, fascinating final. My pick to come out of the West is the Kings. The Kings are the most, at least to me, like electric watching them. The speed that they have up and down their roster was incredible, and they have a incredibly underrated goalie in Darcy Kemper.
Yes.
I mean,
night and day from last year in Washington.
He's fantastic.
So good.
He's the type of goalie that can catch fire and carry you. And they have that firepower. They have the veteran presence with your Drew Daddies and Anze Kopitar's. You have the young guys like your Quentin Byfields, like your Kevin Fiala's. There's several other guys out there. I was like, these guys are so freaking fast. What is happening here? The skill that they have, it just blew me away. And part of it maybe because, like Kamala said, we don't get to watch all these teams as much. But I saw them and I was like, that's my pick. They are going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So
you've got let's write it down. You've got Ottawa versus LA Kings.
No, because I don't. I have Ottawa in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Kings in the Stanley Cup Finals. I have not decided who I'm picking out of the East yet, but I'm selecting Ottawa to at least get to the semifinals.
Now, make a decision now. Do it. Do it now. Now. Do it. Do it. Make a decision. Do it.
Give me Caps Avalanche in the Stanley Cup.
That would be fun.
Give me Caps Avalanche.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, those are my picks.
Yeah, I'll go Avs as well.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say who else are we looking here? Go back. Can you go back up to the East? You know what? Give me Florida again.
Oh yeah, you love your psychos down there in Florida.
I absolutely love those guys.
Yeah.
Bennett, Kachuk hopefully is back after that groin.
Yeah, that's going to be the determining factor.
Yeah,
Can't
I
pick a
think they're gonna get worn down. That's why I don't have the Panthers. I'm not. So my first thought was the Hurricanes. That was my first. Just for Rod the Bod, just because they've been to it feels like they've been in the Eastern Conference Finals like every year the last like 4 years. Yeah. So it felt like that was like who I wanted to pick, but I still couldn't. I just haven't decided. I haven't figured it out yet. The East is so competitive, and like if you look at the number of points, there are several teams on the Western Conference who would be in that second wild card for the East, like your Canucks, right? It's a little more beat the hell out of each other in the East and free flowing in the West. So it'll be fun. Like I said, we got about 10 to 12 games left in the regular season, which is about 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Give or take. So it'll be fun to see how that wraps up.
Yeah.
Anything else hockey wise before we move on to some NBA?
Go Caps.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, bring up the NBA standings, Calmo.
All right, man. God damn, give me a second. Fuck.
I'm just prompting you.
God damn.
Well, either that or play some dead air from...
I can't do both.
Why are you yelling? You're yelling at me. Why are you yelling?
A lot of edge in my... You came at me, and I was giving it back hard.
I give it back. I'll put my thumb
Make me a bicycle, clown.
All right, you want a bicycle? I'll make you a damn bicycle.
All right, so we have here in the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have been the best team in the NBA the entire year. They've clinched a playoff berth. So have the defending champion Boston Celtics, which should be no surprise. Easily the two best teams in the East there. Shocking to no one, our Zards are eliminated. But shocking to me, they have 15 wins. Thought they might have... They were on pace to have less than that. So, yeah, go Zards. Good, nice feel-good story there in the East of the Detroit Pistons. As it sits now, they're in the 6th spot, which would keep them up out of the play-in games, which is between the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds. And that's a big deal and amazing for the Pistons, who have been freaking horrendous. I mean, same thing. Boy, name someone on the Pistons.
Did you say Cade Cunningham?
Cade Cunningham. Can you name someone outside of Cade Cunningham?
Oh, that's not fair.
I cannot.
You can't get angry and change the rules, but you don't like how I'm doing it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the point, though, is that you can name people up and down the other top teams there, right? With the Cavaliers, Celtics, Knicks, Pacers, Bucks.
I think we said Dean Wade is on Detroit, right?
No, he's on the Cavaliers.
Oh, he's on the Cavaliers. That's right.
I think Ausar Thompson is on the Pistons. I only know who he is because his brother, Amen Thompson, is on the Rockets. But I hope I didn't mix them up, because I think they're like identical twins.
Did you say Ausar Thompson?
Ausar, yeah. Ausar.
Yes, he is.
Outside of that, I have no idea. I'm sure there's a couple like goons there that's like, oh, that dude's on the Pistons, like some big Australian goon.
Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah, Michigan man.
Ron Harper Jr.
That's Rutgers, yeah.
Juniors.
So they got some dudes with some NBA pedigree.
Jaden Ivey, I remember him. Purdue.
Yeah, Purdue. Okay, but still, like, these aren't guys who are established, like, bona fide NBA guys. Yeah. Yes, Cade Cunningham, like you said, we know him. You know, especially you, because of Big 12 basketball at Oklahoma State. But he was the number 1 overall pick, I believe, a couple years ago. So that's where he gets the notoriety. But yeah,
Tobias Harris is their, I guess he's their big money maker.
Oh, because you got to fill out the salary cap.
25 mil.
That's pretty good. I do like him, but I don't know how much he's contributing at this point in his career. But yeah, it's a feel-good story there as well. Playing teams, you have the Hawks, Magic, Bulls, Heat, and in the East, that means you're really not that good. I mean, all of those teams have losing records. It's like, why do we allow them to even have a chance to play in the playoffs if you can't even have a winning record in a league where a lot of people sit out a lot? So, yeah, that's not compelling.
Are awful.
No, it's terrible, right? So, I mean, really, this conference is the top 5 teams: the Bucks, the Pacers, the Knicks, Celtics, Cavaliers. Those teams all have a
problem.
playing games are
the
stupid.
playing
NBA
there's no
playoffs need to
incentive.
figure it the fuck out. This is bad.
This is a participation trophy.
Yes.
Like we wonder why.
Congrats on finishing close to 500. Here's your
Not
consolation.
even.
Look at the Heat are 30-41, and they're going to be in the play-in.
11 games under 500, and you make the postseason, I guess, as a playing game. Come on.
Okay.
I mean, it's the definition of a participation trophy.
So if you scroll down to the West, I'll tell you why they introduced the playing games. The West has always been more crowded, more loaded, especially with LeBron going over to the Lakers now. And the play-in games over there, if you look at the teams that are in the play-in, the Suns, the Kings, the Wolves, and the Clippers all have all-star power. So that, right, think about if you just had top 8, you eliminate the Kings and the Suns. You don't have a chance to see the Suns, who have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, play more games. That's what this allows them a chance to get in. The other last few years, the Warriors were in there, so it kept Steph Curry technically in the playoffs. I think the Lakers might have been there one of the last couple years as well. The Clippers have like everyone under the sun that's old. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and James Harden and all these dudes. I'm even missing, I think, a couple. So you give those guys opportunities. The T-Wolves been down this year compared to what they were last year. Right? If they slip up a little bit, they could find themselves at the 9 seed, which historically would mean you have Anthony Edwards on the outside looking in, and that's not good for the NBA. You want him playing. So the Western Conference is why they introduced this. It's just disingenuous because when you realize that and you take that into context, you realize they introduced something purely out of monetary greed and not practicality.
Like, it'd be like the same thing as like, oh, well, the Penguins have Sidney Crosby.
Yes.
He's a household name. We need him to be playing in the playoffs. Like, no, you're disingenuous, I think, is a great word to use. I'm going to take it a step further. Just say bullshit. It sucks.
Yeah, I mean,
no.
Again, why if
Doesn't
I'm a
interest
star,
me.
if I'm a star playing in the NBA, what's my incentive to do what every other sport does and play every game?
There isn't, because you are able to make money. Your status as an NBA player makes you a lot of money, but also you can make so much money outside of the NBA. So these guys essentially all have like 2 careers. So that's why. Like, I don't need to play all the time.
Manage me. I'm so tired.
And I'm in the postseason.
Yeah, I don't need to play.
And all I have to do is bitch and moan to the Players Association and say, well, we're the best players. Like, we should finagle this so we can get 10 teams into the postseason and give the fans what they want to watch.
Yeah.
Even though if you just played every game, they'd actually watch the regular season and your record would probably be better.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Dallas Mavericks, who are sitting on the outside looking in, right? They just acquired. Kyrie got hurt, which was a shame, but Anthony Davis is saying he's going to come back to try to get them in there. If you look, their record is the same as the Suns. They're just losing a tiebreaker.
Come back so they don't start forfeiting games.
Yeah. I mean, so again, that this play-in allows a team like the Mavericks, who would, yes, they'd still be alive, because if you look at the difference between the Mavericks record and like the Warriors record, it's only 6.5 games there. Yeah. So they'd still be in the running to get into the normal 8-team playoff. They'd still be alive, but this, like you said, it makes it easier. They don't have to play everyone as much. They can, we can coast a little bit. We can get guys in. It's almost like let's appease them. Neville Chamberlain. Let's appease what's going on here. In the West, though, the Oklahoma City Thunder, have they surpassed the Cavaliers with best record? They have. Yes, they have. Charles Barkley has brought this up before. The Cavaliers and the Thunder should be the first thing everyone talks about in the NBA for how good. They have been the by far 2 dominant teams in the NBA this season, and great stories of how to build teams the right way and be deep and win in multifaceted ways, but no, it doesn't push the needle, so we won't talk about them. But as you can see, the Thunder have already clinched a playoff berth. The Rockets are in that same boat, a young team, right? Name someone on the Rockets.
They don't have James Harden anymore, do they?
No.
Russell Westbrook?
No. He's on the Nuggets.
I have no idea who's on the Rockets.
Alperen Şengün, who's a Turkish superstar.
He was on the tip of my tongue.
Yes. Eman Thompson, Sar's twin brother, is there. And they got there's another guy, I want to say his name's Jalen Williams. But they got guys who didn't play in college. Fred VanVleet, I believe, from Wichita State. Dylan Brooks, I believe, from Oregon is their goon. Steven Adams, I think, is also gooning it up. I think he's Kiwi, New Zealand, Steven Adams. Or he's Australian. I forget which one. But they have a nice mix, and that's why you're seeing them do this well. To me, it's not surprising to see the Rockets do this well. Did he really? Why did I think he was Gonzaga?
The roster.
Sweet.
Dylan Brooks at Oregon.
Yes, Steven Adams did go to Pitt, yes. But yes, you have them there. To be honest, though, playoff time, the Rockets don't scare me because they don't have the pedigree yet. They don't have the experience. The Nuggets and the Lakers would scare the crap out of me because they're playing so well, especially the Lakers right now are playing so well. You have the star power, have depth, believe it or not, with the Lakers, which is something they haven't really had in several years. They had been playing super well, though. Before that losing streak, they were like demolishing people. Right? They've kind of cooled off, but they've been playing really well. So you've got a lot going there. I don't want to play the Lakers or the Nuggets. My pick to come out of the West is the Nuggets because of that championship pedigree and because they have the best player on the planet in Nikola Jokic. So I'll take that. Russell Westbrook Jr. the third is playing really well for them in a smaller role than what he's used to, but I think it suits him well. I think Memphis is too erratic at times. I think Golden State is too old. As much as I love Steph Curry, those 7 to 10 or 11 teams, yeah, they'll get in, but they don't scare me as much, especially because Minnesota's not in form. So give me the Nuggets to come out of the West. The East, to me, is a toss-up between the Celtics and the Cavaliers. It would be nice to pick the Knicks. I would love to pick the Knicks. I think that would be so good for basketball to have the Knicks winning playoff series like they did last year and getting to the NBA Finals. I think that would be so cool to have that, to see Jokic play in Madison Square Garden in the NBA Finals, or even LeBron play in Madison Square Garden in the NBA Finals. That would be so cool. I want to pick them, but I just don't think that they have enough offensive firepower to unseed Cleveland and Boston. So give me Boston and get back. Boston versus Denver.
Good picks.
Yeah. I like Boston. I'm never going to root against Joe Mazzulla.
From?
West by God.
Yes, he is.
Is there enough money in the world to throw at him to leave his NBA champion Boston Celtics to go back to West Virginia?
That's probably not.
No.
Anything else NBA-wise before we move on?
No. Nope.
All right, so I'm going to... Yep, moving on to the Valspar Championship, which is on the PGA Tour this past week. I don't know if you saw it. It was the last stop in the Florida swing for the PGA Tour this year. But Victor Hovland from...
Norway.
Yes.
Norway, that's right.
And where else?
Europe.
America?
Oklahoma State, jabronis. Oklahoma State.
I did not know that.
He made birdies on 2 of the final 3 holes to shoot a 4 under 67 and come from behind to claim the Valspar Championship in Palm Harbor, Florida, defeating Justin Thomas by 1 stroke, who JT also had a very strong final round. He shot a 5 under.
Alabama.
Yes, he is. Thank you.
He threw it away in the last 4 holes.
Yeah, he still shot 5 under though. He's still looking good.
That's
still 2 guys who we've been dying to look in form for the last few years, and to see maybe it's a precursor of things to come. Maybe not. Golf is a funny game. It's so much in your head, the same way baseball is. But this was Hovland's 7th career PGA Tour win, and it's his first since 2023. In that 2023 season, he won the Tour Championship, was a star on the Europe Ryder Cup team that smoked the U.S. in Italy, but then last year was lost. This win is shocking that he was able to.
Lost, but
yes.
With the Valspar not being a signature event and being 2 weeks before the Masters, it was a depleted field. Granted, I'm not trying to take anything away from it. I think if anyone needed this win, it was Victor Hovland and it was Justin Thomas. But I'm just going to caution golf fans, do not fall into the trap of betting on these guys. I think Victor is going to struggle in the majors this year. I think Justin will probably make the cuts and be competitive because his game seems way more polished this year. Yeah, his game seems way more polished this year, but I don't think anyone should fall into the trap of believing that Victor Hovland really is. Oh, he's back. He's gonna win the major. He's gonna compete at Augusta. I think it's a long shot. I think that this is great for him because both of those, like Victor especially, needs the points and is going to need the points down the stretch for FedEx
And Ryder Cup.
Yeah, Ryder Cup too, because
this year.
it's going to be tight for him. But he's just seemed lost in the woods for the last year and a half, and like I said, good for him. I love Victor Hovland, but I don't think he's all the way there.
Just to be devil's advocate, sometimes in a game, especially a game like golf, things you just need something to click, right? Just some little thing to go your way and click, and you're back, and there's no rhyme or reason for it. The same way there's no rhyme or reason for him to struggle, right? So you never know. This could be one of those things where he's due.
He decided to change his swing and change his swing coach and change his caddy. Like he had the golf world holding its breath in anticipation for him to take over after his Ryder Cup performance in the year that he had. Last year was supposed to be the year of Victor Hovland, and he threw it all out the window to change everything. And up until now, you're right, Nick. I mean, sometimes it just takes one thing to click and then everything falls into place. But up until Valspar, he still was kind of lost in the woods. So, I mean, I hope it's a sign of things to come for the young man, because I love watching Victor Hovland, and he's a ping golfer. Soft spot in my heart for ping golfers, but I'm not convinced yet.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like you said, we'll see. We're a few weeks away from the Masters. Segues us into a shameless plug for our WCME golf show hosted by Nate the Starter Bursack. You can find those episodes on Spotify and iHeartRadio. I believe they just dropped an episode yesterday.
It's good so far.
At noon. It's
good.
Again, Spotify and iHeart. It's WCME Golf, hosted by Nate the Starter Bursack. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, check that out.
Is that what he's doing? I thought it was the stick.
He changed it.
He changed it.
Yeah.
As he's allowed to.
You know, he's the starter. He decides what goes where. You know, I
like that.
Yeah, he's managing the course of the podcast.
Yes.
I really like that. There's depth there, boy. It's like a pie. There's layers.
Ogres have layers.
I was going to say a lasagna. Okay. Moving on to our favorite segment, brought to you as always by One Legacy Title and Escrow in Jacksonville, Florida. Visit them at onelegacyflorida.com or follow them on Instagram at onelegacyflorida to see how they can help you with your next house closing. One Legacy Title and Escrow, because your legacy matters. And our favorite segment for this week, we went with our favorite college basketball players of all time in honor of March Madness. Does anyone want to kick us off and start?
I'll go. This is, I'm sure you guys probably have way more intricate lists than I do. And plus, March Madness is kind of Stevie's thing, so I have no problem yielding and giving him a better spot than me. All right, so honorable mention, I'm going to go Steph Curry. Some people would probably put him higher. I think I put him down that low because he was a great college player and he elevated his school so much. But I think I don't really like the Steph Curry effect in basketball. You know, just
we saw St. John shoot 2 of 21 and Arkansas shoot 2 of 19 from 3.
Yes. I'm not a fan.
Is that good?
I'm not a fan of the Steph Curry effect. Loves, and I also don't like that. You know, a lot of people see how my first name is spelled and call me Stefan
all the time.
It's awful. You know, like just be Steven, you know.
Yep. That I'm right with you on that one.
Yeah. So that'll take me to. That's all I'm gonna say about Steph Curry, about Stephen Curry. Number 5, I'm going to go with a big boy from Oklahoma. I'm going to go with Blake Griffin. 22.7 points per game and 14.4 rebounds per game as a sophomore. I mean, the dude was an electric college player, right?
Yes. And there was some bounce that you didn't see in a lot of big college players.
Yes. Blake Griffin was awesome. I also think he was a player of the year, too, for one of the years that he was there. Number 4, I'm going to go with the 3-point assassin out of BYU. I'm going to go with Jimmer Fredette. Elite shooter. I mean, he's right up there. I mean, you want to talk Steph Curry. Let's talk Jimmer. Right, let's talk Jimmer Fredette. 28.9 points per game. Plus Jimmer. Oh my gosh, elite name. Jimmer.
Dum.
I hardly know her.
Yeah. Number 3, I'm going to go with a Bucky Badger loyalist. I'm going to go with Frank Kaminsky. 2015 Player of the Year, and that's another dominant inside-out big man.
I have a feeling he might be on all of ours.
Really? Is that why I wasn't sure. I thought for sure Nick was wearing the hoodie because of the hockey game, but now that you mention it, I think Frank Kaminsky's probably going to be on his list too. Look at that poker face. You
get two pair. The whole table knows.
You holding 2 pair. You
got bullets. We got a pair of bullets. Flip him, George. I'm calling.
Number two. This was probably one of the first player to ever get me excited to watch college ball and have me excited to play basketball. Guy out of Duke. I'm going with JJ Redick. I'm going with JJ. He was so much fun to watch. He was a guy that made me excited to watch college basketball. I think he was great for college basketball. All-time leading scorer in Duke history. 2,769 points. It set a record at the time for three-pointers made at 457. Always liked JJ Redick, but I idolize college JJ Redick. He's just one of my absolute all-time favorites. And then, obviously it's no mystery, I get excited around March Madness. I think you guys know that just as well as anyone does because it's just the debauchery that goes on in the first weekend. Regular season college basketball, I don't watch a lot of. There's usually hockey on. I watch a lot of hockey. But there was one guy in recent history who made me very excited to just go out and watch college basketball, just regular season, and that was Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson, when he played at Duke, it was a big man who could dribble, who could shoot. He was electric to watch, and I think that he had a huge effect on viewership while he was playing at Duke. I think a lot of people went out of their way to watch Zion Williamson, and I think anytime you can do that, that's good for the game. Not a fan of what he's doing now.
Which is nothing. Making a lot of money.
Yeah,
he was so powerful. He literally broke through his shoe.
Yeah,
cutting.
Tough look for Jordans, by the way. But
they're not Jordans. Brand is UNC,
Michigan.
He wasn't wearing Jordans.
Michigan.
What was he wearing? Do you remember?
Whatever Duke's sponsored by, probably Nikes. But Jordan Brand, who went to
that's right. No,
UNC would never allow Duke.
He
to be
got a Jordan Brand prior to getting drafted. That's right. He was a Jordan Brand athlete prior to getting drafted. But anyways, he was so much fun to watch in college, and that's the first name that came to mind even before JJ Redick because just of the effect that his collegiate career had on me and bringing me back to watching it just on a Wednesday night during the regular season. So that's my list. I'll hang up and listen.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go. I have, instead of an honorable mention, I went with a newcomers, and I went with 3 newcomers that became some of my favorite players of all time this year. One, Bennett Sturtz out of Drake, now going to Iowa. I'll have to actually watch Iowa games.
Love the Drake.
Locked into Drake this year because of Bennett Sturtz. What an awesome player. Just completely under control. I feel like he's someone, you want to learn how to play basketball, watch Bennett Sturtz play. Another newcomer, Javon Small from West Virginia. What an incredible year he had. Had a chance to be, I believe he's an honorable mention All-American, first team All-Big 12. Had a chance to be the player of the year in the Big 12. Got snubbed for the tournament, all of it. But what an incredible year for Javon Small. And immediately became a fan favorite. Became one of those guys that West Virginia fans are he's one of the top West Virginia Mountaineers we've seen. I really, really like Javon Small. And then the other one, JJ Quinterly out of the West Virginia women's basketball team. I believe she finished second all-time in women's basketball in scoring. Unfortunate end to her career, but she, I believe she stayed all 4 years. Incredible career for JJ Quinterly. She'll be on, the upper echelon of West Virginia athletes. All right, moving on. Number 5, Tyler Hansbrough. Absolute big man that just, he felt like the Tim Tebow of college basketball. Does anything willing, he's going to will the team to win. Just always going to be doing the little things to win the game, to do something. And then just was it Gerald Henderson when he broke his nose?
Yeah.
And that cheap shot from Henderson, just seeing Hansbrough just bloodied up, coming back up, just in his face, It's gonna take more than that. Like I absolutely loved watching Hansbrough. Number 4, another big man out of Wisconsin, Frank Kaminsky.
There you go.
Do it all. Stretch 5, back-to-back Final Four. Should have won a national championship. That team with Decker and Nigel Hayes. I mean, what an incredible career from Frank Kaminsky. Every time he shot from deep from 3, I was like, what a clutch shot. This one's going in. Needed it. Goes in. Matchup nightmare. Incredible handles. Thought he'd do better in the NBA, but
he's still in the NBA though. So that's all that matters.
True.
That's all that matters.
Number 3, Javon Carter from West by God. That was probably those years with Daxter Miles and Tariq Phillip. Those were the most electric years I was there. The Press Virginia teams. Javon Carter, absolute bulldog. I believe John Morant was asked one time, like, who was the toughest person that guarded you? And he said Javon Carter, like without hesitation. He was like Javon Carter.
No, it was that kid he beat the crap out of at his house.
Jesus Christ. Let me get through my list.
Don't throw him up. You don't want me to hammer him home.
That was John Morant.
Don't throw him up if you don't want me to hammer him home. What an all-time quote.
Absolutely ridiculous. Moving on.
Finish it. You won't.
Move on to the next one. Number 2, Ty Lawson out of UNC. He's like, I wore number 5 for Nomar Garciaparra for like everything, but I was like, who's like, I'm watching college basketball younger. I'm like, that dude, number 5 for UNC, Ty Lawson. I love this guy. Like, I need to wear number 5, like continue number 5 with basketball too. Ty Lawson was awesome. I used to go out like in the cul-de-sac and try to like, and after watching Ty Lawson go play, I like go out and shoot baskets because he was like the first one that really got me like juiced up to go play basketball. Number 1, Ty Jerome from UVA. I've said it. I believe he was, like I said, on my favorite guards list. Like Ty Jerome was so good. I could watch him play basketball all day. Like under control, clutch shots, knows exactly what he's doing. I'm a huge fan of Ty Jerome. I'm so glad he actually got a shot in the NBA. I was very worried about that one, but yeah, you're seeing why he was a national champion.
Yep.
I'll hang up and listen.
The Cavaliers of North with him and DeAndre Hunter in Cleveland. So I have 2 honorable mentions. One is Steph Curry. Don't need to get into that anymore of what's been documented. And number 2 is London Prentice, point guard for UVA before Ty Jerome got there.
Carter ate him up.
Yeah, but Prentice was the consummate floor general. It's no surprise now he's playing really well overseas. I forget where he might be in Spain or Greece. I forget where he's playing, but doing really well. But Prentice was a fantastic player. Very, I thought fun to watch because he was on a team with a lot of talent. All his teams had talent, right? Or at least talent that Tony Bennett created. And he would always, for me, was perennially underrated because other guys, some guys coming up here, would get more of the headlines for the amount that they would score. But Prentice, for a lot of those years, I thought was the best player on the court for UVA, or at least the most essential for them. And number 5, actually, is Ty Jerome. The aforementioned Ty Jerome. Send it in, Jerome. The boy said, if you don't know basketball, you look at him, you go, whatever. But if you know basketball, the angles he takes, the Luka Doncic-like hesitations and pauses and cuts that he makes to get that space to get open and uses his size to his advantage and he has a very quick release and shot. And very accurate with it.
I believe he's from Pelham.
He went Iona Prep is where he went to. I think he's from Manhattan. He's from the city.
Is Iona Prep New Rochelle or Pelham?
It's in that area, just north of the city. But yeah, Jerome went there. He's like you said,
New York City toughness though that he's got, like the amount of people that try to. We just saw it last week with who was it? Paolo Banchero trying to talk trash to him, and he gave it right back. Like, yeah, you're not getting under Ty Jerome's skin.
No, the guile is the tennis term they use all the time. That's what Ty Jerome has, is true guile out there on the basketball court. Number 4, Frank Kaminsky, aforementioned Badger big man. He was so much fun to watch because it felt unconventional. That I think is endearing to a lot of us who, like to be unconventional, don't want to fit into a mold. So Frank Kaminsky elevated that program, like you said, along with Sam Decker, to heights that they had never seen before. And that's a program that has a substantial basketball history. When you go back through like the Devin Harrises, the Michael Finleys, the Londo Tuckers, and I'm missing several. I mean, even right now, right? You've got Johnny Davis a couple years ago, the leading scorer this year. I forget his name. Tanji, right? Yeah. they have the pedigree there in Wisconsin. It's a sleeper program, but he took them to a level that they had never experienced before, which is very fun to watch. Number 3, Joe Harris, Joey Hoops from
UVA.
Thank you. As several of these people are on my list. Joe Harris was, at least to me, the first one of the Tony Bennett era to put UVA on the map. He was a commit. He's from Washington State, like the state of Washington, was committed to play for Bennett at Washington State. And then Bennett took the job at UVA. He decommitted and went across the country to play with Bennett. And was a guy who no one would have known who he is, but he was just a lot of Bennett Sturts-like angles, a lot of Thomas Walkup-like skills that you saw there, combined with more athleticism than you see, I think, from some of those guys. And a guy who could get you a bucket, like you talk about, like get me a bucket. Joey Hoops, you need a bucket, you get it. Dropped, I want to say, it was 36 points on a Duke team that included Kyle Singler and Nolan Smith, and amongst other luminaries for the Blue Devils to knock them off. He was the catalyst behind that. I don't know if you want to call it a dynasty, but the Tony Bennett era that saw the unprecedented success that UVA basketball had. Joe Harris was the one to kick that off. Number 2, Tyler Hansbrough. For the same reasons you said, Boyd, the Tim Tebow-like aspects of his game without, the religious stuff there. But it felt like he was going to will his team to victory no matter who they were playing or who he was guarding, right? Because it's not like he was the biggest guy or the fastest guy or the strongest guy. He just, to put the ball in the hoop. And you had to do all the things you need to do to be successful and lead a team. And that was, fun, like inspiring is what it was. It was an inspiration to kids growing up who were like, I can do tough things. I can succeed when there are things stacked against me. I can find a way to win. And number 1 is Malcolm Brogdon from
UVA.
From UVA.
You love Malcolm.
One ACC offensive and defensive player of the year, first person, I believe still the only person ever to do so. And again, in the ACC conference where you had all these Duke players, UNC players, those old Maryland players back in the day, right? I left off Juan Dixon and Steve Blake, who I wanted to have on there, right? Who were ACC players. There's so many laundry lists of people in that conference, all this, right? And he did something that none of those guys have ever done, right? Your Tim Duncans, your Chris Pauls of the world. No one was ever the offensive and defensive player of the year in the conference until Malcolm Brogdon came around and did it. And you talk about being unconventional, being underrated, being doubted. You're not big enough. You're too slow. You can't jump high enough. Your shot doesn't look right enough, right?
I did not like the look of your shot.
But to see a guy who, was given a chance at UVA, continue to get a chance in the NBA, and shown how truly good of a basketball player he is. It does, and again, that gives us that hope of like, it doesn't matter necessarily that my measurables isn't this. I can find ways to win and be successful. And if I am, smarter than you, if I work harder than you, if I want it more than you, I can succeed. Brogdon, he considers himself the underachiever in his family because he only has a master's degree, because everyone else in his family has doctoral degrees.
From like Harvard.
Yeah,
wasn't he going to go to Harvard?
I could have seen that.
I believe that was like a big storyline every time he played, was that he was supposed to go to Harvard.
Yeah, I'm glad
Berkeley.
I'm glad he didn't, because he wouldn't. He has won Rookie of the Year and Sixth Man of the Year in the NBA. There's only a couple people to do that. One of the guys is Mike Miller, I believe from Florida. I think his son plays for Creighton, I want to say.
Does, yes.
But yeah, Brogdon's had a phenomenal career, especially for a guy who was not highly touted and was doubted for nothing to do with his play, but all about what he looked like. And that's why he's my number 1.
Nice. Good list.
Now, moving on. Last thing. Give them something to watch. Give the people something to watch this next week.
March Madness.
We have March Madness, and baseball starts in 2 days.
Thank you, Boy. Yes, like the boy said, opening day for MLB is on Thursday. Technically, it happened last week.
It's just a ridiculous. Why can't MLB just push that to Wednesday, to
tomorrow? It's always on a Thursday for whatever reason. It's always on a Thursday.
It's such a bad miss by MLB again. Like, who's gonna watch those games? I love opening day. I love baseball. Like, I would love to watch those games, but I'm not.
Fair.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna watch the Sweet 16 because it's way more important.
Caps have a pretty easy schedule coming up. We have the Wild on the 27th, then the Sabres on Sunday the 30th, and the Bruins on Tuesday the 1st. All are great gettable spots for Ovi to score. So keep your eyes on the Great Chase.
I had a couple things. NCAA men's hockey tournament kicks off this week on Thursday. Boston College is the number 1 overall seed with that. I believe the Yukon team has gotten in for the first time ever, which is kind of cool to see that. And some lacrosse stuff in the NCAAs. Men's lacrosse, number 6 Penn State will travel to College Park and play number 2 Maryland. And on the women's side, number 2 UNC will travel to the outskirts of Chicago and play number 3 Northwestern on Thursday. So a couple things there to watch. Anything else before we wrap this up?
Yeah, literally just now Xavier is hiring Richard Pitino, New Mexico's Richard Pitino, the young one.
Wow.
Interesting. You heard it here first.
Damn.
Except the show will air in 14 hours.
I literally just found out.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Thank you. Hey, Adam Schefter, look out.
This is what all they do.
Tough man to make such a tender forecast.
All right, that's going to do it for us here on What Caught My Eye, or WCME Sports. As always, for the boy Stephen Vesci and the man Stephen Comlow, I am the coach Nick Vesci, reminding you to follow us on all of our social media. That's on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, at WCME_sports. You can also catch all of our episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. Every Wednesday at noon, the new ones drop. You can watch old episodes if you want on all those platforms as well. All this information can be found on our website, WCMEsports.com. As always, be decent to each other. Have a good one, and we will see you next time. Take care, Guatemala.